Joined the, whoops, hold on. Got it. Welcome, you've joined the SYA France, we call it the reception, and it's an online event where we've got our resident director, Mina Qadir, and two students who she'll introduce, and their parents to share their experiences with you. I think it's a great program. We think a lot of your questions will be answered. I do want to invite folks to put questions in the chat box now through Zoom, and we will get to them throughout the program and at the end as well. Before we get started in the program, though, we do want to share a short video with you, kind of getting you in the mood and the spirit of life over in Rennes, and then we'll start our program. So Sarah, will you start the video?
The first time we went to Mont Saint-Michel was with our host siblings. That was a really fun experience. We crossed the bay with them, so we were knee-deep in quicksand. It was a really good way to bond with our host siblings and with each other. This entire year has just been about things being based on where we are or where we are going with the school next. You learn about something and then you get to experience it, which is really interesting because it makes classes a lot more engaging, knowing that we're going to see the things that we're studying.
I absolutely love Rennes. The Marché de l'Ys is the biggest outdoor food market in France. So you have everything from vegetables to seafood to cheeses to bread, cakes, flowers, and it's not just for tourists. Really, it's the locals who go and just get their weekly groceries. Sometimes I'll go and get flowers for my host family. I could not have been placed in a better host family. I think it's there where I've learned the most French and learned the most about French culture.
I think I've learned a lot, especially, and retained that information just because our projects have been very, very interactive and place-based. We learned about the life of a soldier. There's a World War I monument at Place de la Mairie, and there's the list of names of all of the soldiers. Each of us chose a soldier that was from Rennes, and we studied that soldier and we looked up the databases about him. It was really meaningful just to track the life of someone who actually lived where we're living right now.
Even greater than Rennes, just the region of Bretagne is really unique, and we spent a lot of time in classes learning about what makes it so unique.
My friends have been a big part of this experience because I've been able to find a really good group of people who are just as adventurous as I am. I'm very glad I did SYA. It has opened my horizons to travel and being more independent.
I think it's just made me more excited to continue to expand my horizons and to learn more about the world.
It really is a game changer. You can't explain it, you have to experience it.
It's been one of the best decisions I've made in my entire life.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for sharing that. I realized I didn't introduce myself at the very beginning. I'm Rachel Keaton-Kelly, the Director of Enrollment, and so pleased to be here. This is always a really fun event. I know we've got a lot of people who've joined who are in the process of applying, are making the decision if they want to apply, and are finishing their application. So we're getting ready in the admissions team to read all of your applications, and we're getting really excited. I want to thank the team over in Rennes for staying up late. It's been a busy day over there, but they are up. It's 9 o'clock at night. So we're going to keep this to an hour. And I want to turn it over to Mina Qadir, our resident director. Thank you, Mina.
Merci, Rachel. Bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Welcome, everyone. It was so great to see the video again and relive some of these moments. Actually, some of the students featured here have come back as alums, so it's nice to see how much they've grown. So you saw a glimpse of our beautiful city. SYA France has actually been in Rennes since 1967, so over half a century. Rennes is actually the capital of the Bretagne region on the west side of France. And we'll talk more about living in Rennes in a few minutes with two of our current students, Maren and Viviane, who have kindly accepted to join us on this call. So actually, we'll have them introduce themselves. Viviane, if you could start, est-ce que tu peux te présenter en français, s'il te plaît, ta classe, ta ville d'origine et le nom de ton école aux États-Unis?
Oui, bonsoir tout le monde. Je m'appelle Viviane Khalis. J'ai 16 ans et je viens de Portland, Maine. En général, j'étudie à Winfleet, mais pour ma junior année de lycée, j'étudie à Rennes.
Merci beaucoup, Viviane. Marraine en français aussi, si possible?
Bonsoir, je m'appelle Rennes. Je suis une junior aussi et j'ai 16 ans. J'habite en San Francisco et je vais à University High School.
Merci, Marraine. We also joined tonight by Madame Walker and Madame Cook, Marraine and Viviane's mothers. I had the pleasure of meeting both of them last month. Welcome and un grand merci for taking the time to be with us. You were actually in this audience last year, and tonight you'll be sharing your perspective as parents of current students. So if you could both please introduce yourselves quickly.
Hi from San Francisco, everyone. I'm very happy to report it finally stopped raining after 2 weeks of rain, nonstop. And I just want to say, I know if you're thinking about SYA, just go for it. And if you're thinking about doing a semester, you should just do a year. You really want the full experience. It's amazing. It was such a great experience to see Marin for a few days at the beginning of winter break and sort of see the world that she's living in and navigating, meeting her French host family. I can't say enough good things, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have when that's appropriate.
Merci. Madame Cook.
Hi, I'm Courtney Cook. I'm Vivian's mom. I could not agree more with Shenley. One thing I would add is just that there's a lot of time between now and September. So, and I felt that time period was, it was really an important processing time. So if you're at all thinking about doing it, go for it. There's plenty of time to get ready, you know, especially, you know, in our family, you know, it took a while for us to really sort of grasp what Vivian was going to do. And, but by September, we were all ready. So go for it. I agree.
Merci beaucoup to both of you. So I would like to start by giving you an overview of our program and then have our wonderful students share their experience. So currently we have 60 students, 45 are annual students and 15 are semester students. This week, to tell you what's happening right now at school. So this week we launched our very experiential project, most likely the most experiential project we have throughout the year, which is called the Capstone Project. So students are very busy right now with this new project, which again, we started this week. And also they're all fully back into the rhythm of their classes. In a few weeks, in about 4 weeks actually, we'll have a 4-day school trip, which will take us to Paris. Also, now that we have entered the second part of the year, I just want to say that in regards to language acquisition, and parents right now just mentioned that for our annual students, at least, it's been such great growth, and it's just a pleasure to hear them speak in French with so much ease. So you might also wonder what school looks like on a day-to-day basis, whether students are annual students or semester students. So students take 6 courses. Each student gets to choose 2 electives. We offer politics, science, art history, and cinema. All of our elective classes are designated as fieldwork classes, meaning that they have a component of learning that takes place outside of the classroom. In addition to these 2 electives, students also take 4 mandatory classes, English, math, French language, and experiential French, which is our signature fieldwork class. So for this experiential French class, an entire day of school is dedicated to doing class outside of school. So you want to imagine students coming to school 4 days a week and having traditional class time, and every Thursday is fieldwork day. So this is a very unique and place-based class, and actually to illustrate it and describe it, I'll have students speak to it. and maybe share with you their favorite fieldwork so far, whether it's been in Rennes, outside of Rennes, or even during a school trip, because you want to think of our school trips as an extension of school. So maybe I'll start with Marraine. Si tu peux expliquer, Marraine, un petit peu les fieldwork et donner un exemple, peut-être?
So I think that my favorite fieldwork was on our school trip to Montpellier. We went to a museum on Gallo-Roman artifacts, and we got a piece of paper to fill out different questions about an item in the museum of our choice. And I really like going to like ancient history museums and stuff. So it was a really cool way to interact with what was around us, because Montpellier is a great site to see Gallo-Roman like artifacts and old buildings and stuff. So that was probably one of my favorites.
Merci, Marraine. So you picked a fieldwork that happened in the south of France, so during a school trip. Très bien. Et Viviane, un autre exemple peut-être?
Yeah, so I was going to share, I guess, well, my favorite field work was when we went to Mont Saint-Michel for the second time, and we saw the Abbaye, the building. The first time, as you saw in the video, we walked through the bay, but the second time we actually got to see the building. And I take art history personally, so we had spent a lot of time in class learning about the building, studying each part and what they did in it. And so being able to go to the actual building after spending so much time like carefully studying it, and also being able to share the experience, share what the places were with my friends who didn't take the course. It was an incredible experience. And also it kind of shows like the idea of like the place-based learning, but also taking what we learn inside of our classroom and going to like actually visit it.
Ouais, très bien, très bonne description, Viviane. Since you talked about the Mont Saint-Michel, if you could quickly maybe describe the first trip to the Mont Saint-Michel and the crossing of the bay.
Yeah, so the first time we went to Mont Saint-Michel, we went to the bay. First we had a picnic with everyone in the grass, and we kind of got to know each other. It was one of the first few weeks during the period where we got to know each other and got to know the school. And we ended up, so we walked through the bay all together, and that was also one of my favorite experiences, because I guess going through something that was physically difficult, but also at the same time extremely fun, and getting to talk to new people and get to know others. And it was a long walk, but I had a really great time. And at the end, we all like rinsed off and we were all laughing, and it was really great.
Merci, Viviane. Parfait. And then parents, since we're mentioning fieldwork here and trying to explain what it is, I just wanted to ask you as well, since each fieldwork is really designed that we make the best use of existing local resources and in a very deliberate way push students outside of the comfort zone. That was the example right now with the crossing of the bay, and that was very physical, and sometimes it's other type of exercises they do using the target language outside of the building and authentic situations. Can you tell us what type of growth you have perhaps observed in your child when you visited last month? Madam Cook or Madam Walker?
I'll go. It was profound. I'll just be honest. It was the second I saw her, there was just a difference. There's a confidence, just a maturity that had overtaken her. It was just she knew herself better. I could see it instantly. Yeah, just a greater sense of her own capabilities. I think that's what we talked about a lot too. And I mean, she was always a confident kid, more or less, but like every 16-year-old, it's hard. It's hard to be a teenager, but I think spending time away from her family made us all even closer. When you see your kid every single day, you almost don't notice that what's the big sweeping changes, but when you don't see them, for months at a time, and as far as keeping in touch with her, we really put that ball in her court and let her communicate with us in whatever ways she needed to, and sometimes it's a lot and sometimes it's a little, and you know, it's just part of that letting go. And I'm grateful that I get her back again for another year before she goes off to college. Yeah, no, the growth is the personal growth has been astounding. So I'll pass it to you, Shenley.
Sounds good. I'd just like to add, just sort of seeing Marin in her new element. Like Courtney said, it was very striking, just the capabilities that she developed and the independence. I mean, being a kid that age, you know, I think if you look back in your life, you're like, wow, that's a tough age. You feel like everyone's always looking at you and judging you and these kinds of things. And sometimes it's hard to put yourself out there. And this program really forces you to, in a good way, you know, like, wow, you know, my French isn't perfect, but I'm going to have to ask this guy for directions, and I'm going to have to do that, or I'm going to need to order my food in French because it's arrogant to assume they, you know, speak English. And it's just it just really is transformative, just having them do those things and in a natural way, and then learn from that experience that, hey, that really wasn't as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. And I can definitely see that translating into, you know, future challenges, including, you know, leaving home for good. I mean, this, unless your kid is at boarding school, which is another great experience, this is like 1 year of boarding school, but by the way, they're not speaking your language. So I think you're getting some of those same kind of lessons and self-awareness from doing this. And I know what's going on at her school. I'm in contact with her friends, parents, and whatnot. And I mean, it's every week, you know, we sort of give thanks that, like, wow, look what she's getting to do. You know, I know what these kids are doing and it's great. And they're just marching along their normal junior year process. And it's like, whoa, Marin's in Avignon looking at this, and, you know, out in the world and going on a trip with her friends and staying overnight. And it's, I think it's a very amazing growth experience. And, you know, we're very grateful that this exists.
Merci beaucoup. It's almost 2 years into one, sometimes I feel. So great. So we talked a little bit about classes. We only have an hour, so I touched on important classes and class load and field work, because again, we dedicate a full day of our school to these missions that students accomplish, you know, within the city or beyond. I also wanted to speak about another very important aspect, I would say a pillar of our program, which is our host families. And I know that prospective families have a lot of questions about the homestay. So what I can tell you tonight is that all of our host families are interviewed by our host family coordinator, Madame Delanoux, who does not only do the best possible placements using the information you provide us, but also provides ongoing guidance and orientation to both the host families and the students throughout the year. I can't emphasize enough that the homestay is a key part of the student's journey. We really look at it as an extension, again, of what happens in this building. It really provides our students a mean to develop the language proficiency and understanding of the culture. It really completes what happens at school. So we're very thankful to have a wide range of families. What they all have in common is really wanting to host a student and share their home and life with them. We also have very high expectations of our students to be actively engaged and involved in the life of their host family by doing very simple things such as sharing the day at the dinner table. Dinner is much longer here. Doing activities with the host family, helping around the house, asking questions, and just being curious about these new people that they live with and about their new country. Most SYA students keep in touch with their host family long after they leave. Just this first semester, I had several alumni who came to Rennes to visit their host family, and it really speaks to that special bond. And I know that Maren and Viviane can illustrate that by talking about the host parents and siblings. I'll start with you, Maren, again, because I know you had your host father's birthday dinner tonight. So if you could share a little bit about your homestay experience.
Yeah, so I have a host dad, host mom, and host sister. And so tonight was my host dad's birthday, so we went out to a restaurant and all had dinner together. And it's just been really incredible. They're such an amazing family, and I don't think I could have been luckier. Like it just adds so much to the experience, and it's really like you're actually living and immersed in the place and the culture, because I feel like if we were just all boarding at a house, like yeah, we'd probably get some language from ordering at restaurants and like our classes, but it's incomparable to like the experience we get from actually living with a host family. And like my first weekend here, I had been here for 3 days. I was still jet lagged, and I went to my host grandfather's birthday with the entire extended family. And I felt like that was kind of going in off the deep end, but it generally has been one of the best experiences ever. And I'm also really happy because I have a cat and I've always wanted a pet, so I was able to get that here as well. But yeah, the host family experience is just incredible. Yeah.
Merci, Maren. And then also, can you say where you live and how far it is from school and how you get to school in the morning?
So I live in Rennes, which is a little like town area to the south of Rennes. So I'm not actually in the city, but in the morning I take a bus to a metro stop, which is the end of one of the metro lines. And then I take that metro to school and then walk 2 minutes and I'm at school. So it's one of the longer commutes because I live in one of the furthest areas from school. But I was a bit nervous about that at first because I was wondering if I would not experience as much as other people, but it's pretty easy. The bus schedule is super consistent, so it's really easy to kind of know, oh, I have a 5:20 bus that I can take home and things like that. And then also I do actually enjoy my commute in the morning. It's probably about like 40 minutes, 50 minutes, depending on the day, which is a lot, but it's a good time to actually wake up in the morning and I can walk and just make sure I'm fully ready for the school day. But yeah, there's definitely upsides to living in the city, but I also do enjoy kind of having my own little area outside and having my own spaces where I can just think about stuff.
Merci beaucoup, Maren. And we do start school at 9, so it helps with students who are actually placed on the outskirts of the city, meaning that even if you are at the farthest end, like Maren is, 45-minute commute, you get to leave your house at 8 to be at school at 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's still pretty comfortable for high school students. Viviane, si tu peux aussi un petit peu partager sur ta famille d'accueil et puis le trajet, si tu prends le bus, le métro, etc.
Yes, so I live a 10-minute walk away from school right in Rennes. I have a host dad, a host mom, and 4 host siblings, but only 2 of them are home. So I have my host sister and my host brother. My host sister's 11 and my host brother is my age, so I'm very close with both of them. I would say I very much agree with Maren that the host family experience is one of the most important experiences for me, because it's really I guess it's a place where I can still feel the same like family feeling experience, and it's a way to learn French in a more casual setting. So like at the end of the day, I'm always really excited to go back to my host house and have dinner with them and talk about our days. And I also remembered when my mom visited for the break, she told me that one of the things I was worried most about was my host family. And I guess what I realized was that it's something that it takes time to settle in with them. But if you realize that you're taking the risk and you really put yourself out there and you try as hard as you can, it gets easier and easier as it goes. And my family is very patient with me, and they realize, they know that we're Americans living with a French family, and it's going to take time to master the language, obviously. But yeah, they don't judge me, and they also help me with school or with French. And I also help my host siblings with English sometimes. And we play games or watch TV together, and like have long conversations, kind of just talking about the differences. And I guess I'll just share like a quick favorite memory. Once, one of the first actual days that I was in my host family, we were playing a like classic French dice game. And it was a little bit difficult at the beginning with the French, so I couldn't really understand how to play. And so I kept losing at first, like the first person to lose each time. And eventually I somehow tricked all like the whole family into me winning, and everyone started laughing and they were all like high-fiving me, and they thought it was so funny. And at that point, I already started to feel like I was part of the family.
Très bien, merci. You said two important things, Viviane. Risk-taking is part of what we do here. It's part of our mission. Responsible risk-taking, of course, and also failing, and it will happen. And that's why we love, and the students love the Mont Saint-Michel and the crossing of the bay. And I think it's an analogy to them of the struggle they go through, and they fall in the mud and they get up and they get dirty, and then the water rises and everybody's scared and we get out of the water. So that was very interesting what you said. Merci. Madame Walker and Madame Cook, can you share about perhaps your apprehensions in the beginning of the year, seeing your child move into a new home, and if you could speak to the relationships that they have formed with their host families now?
Sure. I think it was interesting. I was reflecting on what we were worried about, and I do think the host family was the biggest concern. Just, is it going to be a good fit? Are they going to be kind and willing to, interact with her and not just view her as like a boarder? And all of those kind of concerns were allayed once Marin got there. And I will say I was also concerned about her location, because I don't think I realized not that it would have stopped us, but I don't think I realized that there were commutes that were quite as long as Marin's commute ended up being. And so that worried us too. But then once she was in the mix and, doing the bus and doing the metro, and it was all fine, that made us feel a lot better. And then sort of the other piece of it was like a lot of logistical stuff that everybody always worries about, like the phone and the money and the visa and all of that. And I'll just say that's all really easy, and most of it can be taken, besides the visa, can be taken care of by the kids when they get there. So don't stress out about the phone. It'll all work fine. Yeah, and then I really did enjoy going and seeing her there and meeting the host family, and that was incredible. They're so kind and generous, and you can tell they really care for Marin. When we were leaving, we were concerned. We've only been here 4 days, we're now leaving her for this long break, and it's the holidays. And so we were going to drop Marin off at their house, and they said, no, we're coming to the train station so we can all say goodbye, and then we're going to take Marin and do our Christmas decorating, because we want to make sure that she's not in her room crying, that she's involved in doing, not that you would, Marin, I'm not saying, but that she's doing something fun with us. And that was just so thoughtful, and I think that translates to how they treat her all the time, which is great.
Merci.
Yeah, and I would say too, also, I having been an exchange student myself, I've had families that I remember fondly, and then I have families that I may not have had the greatest experiences with, and so I hoped the best for Vivian, and frankly, her family is just so lovely and so kind, and you can just tell that they want her there and they want her as part of the family. It's not just a boarder or just someone to fill the room. Her host brother's away. One of her host brothers is away in Ireland this year, and you can just tell that was an intentional choice. They want to get to know her. They want to support her. There've been a couple of times where we've communicated around just some logistical stuff or some friendship stuff, just to sort of dot the I's and sort of touch base with them, and they've just been so communicative and so loving. And when we went to Rennes this holiday season, my husband took Vivian and her host brother and a couple of SYA friends to an escape room, and they had this awesome time. And I guess he had never been to one before. I don't know if that's right, Vivian. I can't remember. I think he'd never been to one. I don't know. I feel like we've made friends. I mean, I don't know them that well, but I don't know, through Vivian, I feel like we've got lifelong friends, and I've already offered up our house in the future to them if they ever want to come visit the United States, and we live in Maine. So yeah, so I can't say enough about it. And also I feel like the SYA really does an incredible job, sort of asking you lots of questions. What's important to you? How do you see your child? Vivian filled out a lot of a big questionnaire. We filled out a big questionnaire, and I just think it's very thoughtful the way that placements are made. So I really appreciate that.
Merci. Thank you for saying that. It's a huge puzzle for us to place students. So we spent a good month on that. So that's great. Merci. So I'll move on because it's already 9:32 here, and I'll just move on and talk a little bit about co-curriculars. So our students all participate in an activity outside of school. It's actually a requirement for our annual students. It's optional for our semester students. We're fortunate to be in a big city where most activities are offered. It includes things like dance, le football, soccer, la musique, art, crew, gymnastic, and the list goes on. All activities in France are detached from school. That's the main difference for you. And these activities are offered either by private or city clubs. We do have an activity coordinator on campus. And students choose the activity in September once they arrive here in Rennes. We actually have one of our first fieldwork during our immersion and orientation unit is actually titled Finding Your Activity. So the school requirement really aims at having our students participate in an activity outside of the school walls and really connecting with local French students their age. So we'll give you examples with Marraine. If you could tell us what your activity is and how you picked it and what you're getting out of it.
So I row, I do crew, and that was one of the main things I was thinking about when I was applying to SYA, because I row crew in San Francisco as well, and it's really important to me, and it was really important to me that during this year I could stay in shape and keep up the workouts so I would still be able to just jump right back in. And so I joined a crew club in Rennes along with a couple other SYA students who also did crew, and it's just been an absolutely incredible experience. So it's really fun to kind of switch up the scenery where I've been rowing, because normally at home I row on a lake, but there's this really long river that's just gorgeous that I get to row on. And then we're with French students too. So one thing that was pretty funny at the beginning was in crew, there's a lot of commands that the coxswain tells you to do while you're rowing. And they're kind of weird words even in English, but since they were in French, we all just kind of had to figure it out as we went along. So I think that was kind of the more experiential part of it. We had to learn all these new commands, but it actually helped a lot. And it's just a really great community. I actually went to a competition with my crew team and we won first place with our boat. So I have a medal in my room from that. Yeah, it's just been absolutely incredible. And it's a really fun way to kind of go to a place where I can still practice French and learn new things, but it's detached from school. So that's really fun. So I go multiple times a week. The schedule is really flexible because the crew coach knows what SYA is like and knows how there'll be 7 weeks where we're on a school trip and we can't go to any practices. And he's really flexible about making sure that we're still getting a lot out of the program and not and just really understandable for if we need to miss a practice due to school. But it's been such an incredible experience, and I think it's definitely one of my highlights from the year so far.
Merci Marraine. Et Viviane, ton activité?
Oh, well, I was going to start. I did see a comment in the comment section asking about extracurricular activities that were around 15 to 20 minutes away. And mine is around 15 to 20 minutes away. And I take the bus to get there. And the bus is really easy to work around. Also the metro, because they just made a new line. So it's very easy to get around. But I play tennis every Wednesday at a club for an hour and a half. And it really allows me to learn unique vocabulary, especially while playing a sport that I love and that I love playing at home. And I play with a friend who goes to SYA, and I also play with two other French teenagers. And we communicate in French all the time, and we laugh and we have a really good time. And I always look forward to it. It's also the amount of opportunities that you have for activities in Rennes. There's I know so many people who do several different activities. There's art classes, there's all kind of sports, dance, all of that. So yeah, I think that activity is also a really big part of my life here.
Oui, merci. And then, so parents know that students have what we call a Corrigo card, and they get unlimited trips by bus, by metro every day of the year. This is something that SYA provides them the very first day when they arrive at school. So it gets really easy to navigate the city with that card. And we also do multiple navigation exercises and field work throughout the city and throughout the months. So that students really learn how to take the bus and the metro, even if it's beyond going home and coming back to school. Donc voilà. Now I'll talk a little bit about living in Rennes. You might have questions about that. There's things you see online, of course, but I just wanted to say that Rennes is labeled as an art and history city. Its history goes back actually 2,000 years. So it's an old city with preserved medieval buildings in classical heritage. It's also a very young city when you're looking at its demographics. It's a university town. Rennes is actually the 10th largest city in France. It has a very unique feel to it. It's both a large city and it's also very pedestrian. You have quick access to rural areas and forests, which are at the foot of the city. It's also very close to the sea. We're 40 minutes from Saint-Malo and Dinard, which students often visit early in the year where they host families. We'll be going to Saint-Malo and Dinan in the month of March with the school. It's also an hour and a half from Paris by TGV. So sometimes students take a day trip to Paris and come back at night. It's been voted several times over the years as best city in France to live in for its quality of living. It has museums, it has multiple bibliothèques, libraries, sport facilities. It has the second biggest farmers market in France, which actually turned 400 years old this year. Has beautiful parks. We have the Tabor Park, which is right next to our school. And lastly, it has lots of cafes, restaurants, boulangerie, crêperie in every street. So if Marijn, if you could describe a little bit more how it sort of feels to live here on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, I love it. I think it's really nice because especially after the first month or so, you really know your way around and there's not really anything you like can't really get here like you can get in the US. Like, for example, I live in San Francisco and I'm used to kind of having like every type of food like pretty readily accessible. So I was a bit worried when I got here, like what if I can't find like a good like Chinese restaurant or something like that, but like it's incredible just to live because there's so many different things, yet it still has like a unique feel to it that makes it feel like this whole new magical place. And then another thing I really like is there's a lot of really old like ruins and buildings in the churches here. And so I really like art history. So sometimes I'll just walk around with my friends and we'll walk through a church and look at like the stained glass windows and stuff. But yeah, I think it's definitely like an incredible place to live. And also something I really like is in Place Sainte-Anne, which is by a metro stop and I pass it every day. There's a outdoor book market and I love to read and they have gorgeous books there. So I just love going there and just looking around. But yeah, it's an incredible place to live for sure.
Merci Marijn. Viviane?
I would say for me, living in a city, because I come from a pretty small town or city of Portland, Rennes it's not too small, but it's also not too big like Paris, so it's not very overwhelming, but it's a really, really incredible city, and it's also very comforting because, like Maren said, it becomes familiar at a point. But I guess one of the things that we get in the city too is kind of just independence. And also in SYA, but also in the city, because we are able to go every day after school, maybe go to a cafe and do some homework and get a croissant or go to a crêperie or just like talk to friends. And I guess I was gonna mention that one of the I guess biggest things I appreciate about Rennes is that unlike a city like Paris, I find there's very few English speakers. So it kind of makes the entire experience feel even more like an immersion into a foreign country, because when you go to a restaurant, for example, they very rarely respond in English. And so it kind of like builds up your confidence, and it becomes easier and easier. And yeah, just having conversations with people in French, and also like Madame Qadir said, it's a university town, so there's a lot of French kids, and we also eat at the local school, Jean Massé. So we meet a lot of kids often. So yeah, it's just very easy to speak in French, and yeah, thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Viviane. D'accord, so it's 9:42, and we want to maybe give a little bit of time for the Q&A portion.
That would be great, Mina. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Great presentations. We've got a bunch of questions that we're monitoring in the Q&A box. Some of them have been answered. And I do want to say ahead of time, I'm going to jump into some of the questions. If your particular question is not answered, please, I mean, the admissions office will follow up with you, but also don't be a stranger and be in touch with us, because there are some particular things that sometimes folks need to have a really specific answer on, and we're happy to help you get that as needed. So there's a couple of questions I thought that were interesting. One of them was the interaction with the host family prior to departure. And I think that's an interesting one, because there are opportunities to do that. Does one of the students want to take it and talk about did you connect with your host family ahead of time, and what was that like?
I can take it.
Sure.
If you're good with that. So I was really nervous about meeting my host family, especially because you get sent an email that's like, here's your host family, here's where you live, like here's who's in it. So I saw that I had a host sister 1 year older than me, and I was really nervous about meeting her, because I kept thinking like, what if she doesn't like me? Like, what if it's horrible? What if I like do something wrong? But I remember FaceTiming them for the first time, and it was really nice. They were so sweet and asked me a ton of questions, and I was really nervous and didn't talk a ton. But after the call, my host sister DM'd me on Instagram, and we just started talking on there, and that was super fun. So we talked about what shows we like, what hobbies we have. So I was able to kind of like build a connection with her prior to coming to SYA. And then on top of that, I also emailed several times with my host mom and host dad before coming to SYA as well. So when I got to France and like arrived, I didn't feel like I was going to be greeted by complete strangers, because I had already had a connection. So I was really relieved to see them after getting off my very long flight. And yeah, I think prior communication is very easy to do, especially if you have a host sibling. I'd recommend getting their Instagram or phone number and talking with them over messages before.
That's great. Thank you, Maren. Yeah. So our enrolled students find out their host families over the summer. So there's plenty of time to be in touch. And I will say there's opportunity for parents to make connections with these host families as well, to participate in the introductory Zooms. And then when your student goes over and stays with them, there's lots of opportunities for parents to connect and build a relationship directly with those host families, as you've heard from the parents who are on the call. But so that happens in advance and during the year. It's super important. So thank you, Maren, for sharing that. Another question that came up, Ms. Qadir, I'm hoping you can speak to it a little bit. They was inquiring about healthcare for students. What is the healthcare process like? How are students covered, and how does that work?
Yes, so in regards to doctor appointments, oftentimes parents ask about that. So if I'm answering the question from that angle, is that if your child is sick, if they need a doctor appointment here, we do not have an assigned doctor with the school. The fastest way to make an appointment here is to go through the host family's family doctor, because our host students here at the host families are considered as a child of the household. So an appointment would be made through their doctor. If something would happen during the weekend or late at night, we have something else that's called SOS Médecin. So it happened not too long ago. One of the students here had an allergy and applied an EpiPen, and I had to take him to the doctor that night. It was late. So we went straight to SOS Médecin. So there's a 24-hour service. And then, God forbid, there is an emergency, then we just go to the emergency hospital and get fast care. So doctor appointments are not a problem. We had a student break their wrist this year. That was taken care of. She had surgery. I mean, everything that could be done in the US can happen here. It doesn't happen that often, but if something like that would happen here, they would be taken care of. The school pays for everything up front, and then we have an admin here that takes care of all the paperwork in relating the French paperwork with the American insurance.
Great, thank you. Another question is about sort of, there are two questions here. One is sort of about the curriculum and one's about math. And I will say, so one of the questions was, is it a rigorous junior year course load? And yes, it is. For those students who come their junior year, most students come their junior year. We do have some sophomores and a few seniors as well. But it's a rigorous load, and homeschools accept the credits when they return. We have a lot of relationships with a lot of different schools. So those students come back, and that's the idea sort of behind SYA, is that your credits transfer and that you are not getting behind in any way. You're able to sort of keep up. So I hope that answers that parent's question. And then the other question was around math. And yes, we have varying math courses. We've got Algebra 2, we've got Pre-Cal, we've got different calculus courses, and students are placed in the level of math that they would sort of be prepared to go into. Most students are taking pre-calculus as juniors. So hopefully that answers that question. Another question was around the holidays, and we touched on that a little bit, I think, certainly the parents, but we wanted to make sure that everyone's aware that the calendars are on the website, and they're not this next year's calendars, they're this year's calendars. Next year's dates will be set, the basic dates, the start and end date and the holidays will be set by early March, by the time our admissions decisions go out. And those are important to obviously pay attention to. They'll be very similar to the years in the past. Ms. Qadir, do you want to talk just a little bit about the academic calendar and the breaks and when they happen and what you do on the breaks?
Sure. So students typically arrive early September. Then they're with us until the December break. Before the December break, we do have a 2-week break in October, which is called La Toussaint. It's 2 weeks. The first week, Monday through Saturday. So the first 6 days we travel. This year we went to Marseille and Montpellier. So the group is divided into two. Half the school goes to Montpellier and the other half to Marseille. We might change destinations next year. We haven't planned that yet. And then they come back early November. They resume school. They're with us until about December 17th, 18th. We follow the French calendar, the French school calendar, so we can align our calendar with the host siblings calendar as well. So December, we have a 2-week break. We come back to school early January, and then we are at school until about mid-February, and we have another break. It's a 2-week break. The first week, again, is with school. So I mentioned that trip earlier during the call. We'll be in Paris for a week, and then they actually go on real break, because when they're with us, it's quite busy. There are visits, there's field work. We're doing a lot of things together. So it's not a vacation at all. I think they enjoyed very much traveling with us and visiting all these places. We really try to show them places they wouldn't go on their own. So I'm just using Paris as an example because that's the next trip. We try to really get off the tourist trail and show them places they wouldn't go on their own during independent travel or with you. And they have worked ahead of time in preparation before the trip at school, and then there is work on location. So that's the February break. The second week is actually a real vacation break. And then we come back to school early March, and then we go again for 6-7 weeks, and then we have spring break in April. Again, 2 weeks. First week we travel. We do the same trips as in October. So if your student is an annual student, and if they went to Montpellier, that was Rennes earlier, then they switch and they go to Marseille. So they go to the other destination. Then they get a full week of spring break when they can actually vacation. They come back, and then the month of May is here at school in Rennes, and then they typically depart around May 25th, I would say.
Great, thank you. I think it's really helpful, and again highlighting some of the opportunities where the school travels as a group around the country is obviously a hugely exciting part of the program. And all of those trips are included in the tuition. There's a question about second semester sort of inclusion in the language side of things and just in general. Ms. Qadir, could you just talk a little briefly about sort of that second semester arrival and what the entry is like, and for the language particularly?
Sure. So second semester. So first of all, the language requirement is different, meaning that annual students have to have a minimum of 2 years of French before entering our annual program. If you're applying for spring semester, because you are integrating a class that's been here for 4 months, we require 3 years of language, which helps integrating that language level and being with peers who have been here for 4 months. We do have a 1 week immersion unit for spring semester students, so they can slowly integrate classes. We start with core classes. They get a lot of orientation that first week, sort of maneuvering around the city, understanding, how school functions, orientation, roles, host families. And then at the end of the week, when we're done with that, we start actually adding the elective. So it's pretty progressive. But it's still a drop-in system, meaning that we do not have a separate section for spring semester students. They will be mixed with our annual students in all of the classes, just not right away, not on day one. So we take our time, not too much time. The idea is that they integrate the class as fast as possible. And our annual students have been great this year and last year in welcoming the spring semester students. I actually had a group of 5 students going to Charles de Gaulle to pick them up. So the immersion started even earlier this year. They were at the airport, greeted by, of course, teachers and also annual students, came to Rennes, spent a weekend with the host families. And then during that first week, we really tried to help them integrate again the class and the classes. In math, I know that the math teacher here has started a program of math tutoring. So we have leadership positions that we're open to our math students, annual students who are helping the spring semester students actually integrate the math classes. The teachers also are very sensitive to all of that. They train for it. And we try not to start grading until the end of January. So we give them some time before we start doing formative assessments and then summative assessments. So they do get 2-3 weeks where they adapt before they get into the full rhythm of school.
Great, thank you. And just to be clear, there is a specific question. For students who are coming, who are applying for the spring semester, must have completed the first half of French 3. So in order to be eligible. So, well, there's one question about if they have had 2.5 years of French, they would be eligible. There's also a quick question about host families. And do they all have children? No, they do not. I always sort of say host families all come in different shapes and sizes, and we ask that everyone keep a real open mind about their host family. It is an art, the match that happens that Mina Qadir and her host family coordinator do. They pour over those questionnaires and they make some wonderful matches. But we have not all of our host families have kids, and some of them are empty nesters and are dying to have children back in their home. So, and eager to spend time with them and share their experiences with them. So again, we do ask you to keep an open mind when it comes to the host family placement piece. And I think we've heard some really good input from our families here today, just in terms of location of host family and what your expectations are. Keeping an open mind is important. There was also a question about traveling together, just so everyone knows. We do have a group flight that we designate. It's just a this is the flight where we'll have a chaperone going over in September at the beginning of the program. And there's a chaperone on that flight. A majority of the students take that flight, but not all of them. It leaves from the East Coast and typically leaves from Boston. And students are welcome to take that flight. If they don't, they just need to meet us at the airport in Charles de Gaulle in a very narrow window of time when that flight arrives. And all of the students travel to Rennes together with the faculty. When students leave, they take their own flights home. They decide which is the flight that they want to take. So for students who are going for the semester, parents are absolutely able to come over and travel with them at the end if that's what they'd like to do. But most students do travel over together and start the program at the same time. So we're coming up on the hour. It's 10 o'clock over in Rennes. And again, everyone's had a really long day and been wonderful to help and share their experiences, their story. Their journey is just barely half over. They have a whole half a year still to go, and we can't wait to hear from them at the end of the year about how many trips they've had and the courses that they've taken and the friends that they've made and the experiences that they've had. It really is a life-changing experience. And having worked at SYA for as long as I have and seeing the alums, we have over 8,000 alums out there who've experienced this over the years. And some of our older alums are our most dedicated and enthusiastic and are eager to go back and visit Rennes. We had 20 reunion last year of students who graduated back in the 70s, and they all went back and had classes and dinners and had a really amazing experience. So this is something that you will have for the rest of your life, and it will continue to give back to you for many years. So we're really excited that you're considering an application or you're in the process of applying. Again, we're really excited. We're going to start reading those applications in about a week. And the deadline's February 10th for those who need a refresher. And the decisions will go out very early March. So if you have any questions, the admissions team is available. We've got opportunity to schedule calls with us or just call into our office or email us. We're happy to have a conversation with you. But we look forward to reading your application. And again, thank you to our presenters and to Mina, Qadir. You guys have been terrific. So time for bed. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you.